About 12 years ago, a pastor in our presbytery was curious about exploring a possible engagement with Colombia through the accompaniment program. And he said, well, I'm interested in one specific city, and that's Barranquilla, Colombia, which also happens to be where I was born and where I'm from. So all those coincidences, I just thought, I think we're supposed to do something here. Over the last 10 years that we've had this formal relationship, we've lived into this partnership in different ways. It's been trips back and forth, them coming here, us going there, primarily learning from one another and experiencing ministry in our two very different contexts, but finding where the commonalities are and building on that.
Nosotros hemos podido construir un relacionamiento en el que cuando nuestros hermanos de allá de Seattle vienen aquí a la costa, se van sorprendidos con las cosas que nosotros hacemos. Cuando nosotros vamos, nos vamos sorprendidos con lo que ellos hacen en Seattle, y es una sorpresa y es un ánimo legítimo.
This partnership is really rooted in siblinghood, is the word that we use in Spanish, hermanamiento. And that captures the family aspect of it, that we are connected to one another as parts of the body of Christ. We go every year by invitation. They say, come see us. We want to see you.
People want to sit down. They want to know about your life. They want to know about what God is doing in your life. They want to know how they can pray for you. There's now this expectation that tell us what is heavy on the heart of your presbytery, and we will hold you in prayer. And it's a mutual thing that we do back and forth.
They want us to stay in their homes. They want to feed us. There are hugs all around. So it's very easy to step into that friendship. And for us as Americans to learn their unique history and culture is really sustained by their resilience. I mean, 75 years of civil war, right? Like in the more recent U.S. history, we don't have that. However, we're learning through them what it means to have God in your presence when there's hardship, when there's challenge, when there's violence.
We have had some really unique experiences of being able to sit down, for Americans here to sit down with former guerrilla and fighters who are now committed to peace. And what does that mean to create a community of peacemakers?
It was just very powerful to worship in the same context, even with language differences and maybe not always catching everything that was being said. I think that commonality in the worship language, even if it isn't being spoken in your spoken tongue, there's a heart language and a spirit language that kind of comes together.
Ese segundo aspecto ha sido tan bello de poder vernos y decir, somos hermanos, hermanas en Cristo, somos una familia grande de fe, de identidad presbiteriana, y nos reconocemos uno al otro, y nos reconocemos en todos nuestros dones, en todos nuestros talentos, y hemos quebrado incluso esa barrera.
The friendships have allowed us to kind of see how universal that Christian journey really is, despite of the differences. We struggle with the same things.
You visit your family. You have family in the other part of the world or other part of the country. You go and you spend time with them. You don't go there to, make their bed for them, right? You don't go there to do tasks for them that they know how to do themselves. But you go there because you love them and you want to spend time with them.
The old colonial model of mission work is just, it's a bad model, right? And it needs to evolve and it needs to change. But this learning model that we're embracing is really the way of the future.
As someone who is Colombian and someone who comes from the global South, the word mission is a very tenuous word for us. It has a lot of meanings and carries a lot of weight and a lot of baggage. And so one of the things I wanted to make sure in our conversations was that we steered away from the traditional way of understanding mission partnerships and actually have the conversations centered on relationships.
The last time I was in Barranquilla and visiting with elders from Primera Iglesia, really it was in January of this year, and the first question was, do you know any Colombians who live in the United States? What is your church doing about issues around immigration? What is your feeling about the situation at the border? And it was very important to have that conversation with a spirit of humility. And I realized that it's fine to go someplace, but how am I living here is being the authenticity of how I'm living here is a big part of the story. I do know Colombians in Seattle, and I'm grateful that the relationships that have happened there have encouraged me to be more courageous and bold here, in knowing Colombians and Venezuelans and many people from Latin America, that maybe that wouldn't have happened in the same way.
One of the other things that came out was people wanted to have closer relationships with particular congregations where they felt that there was some synchronicity or some chemistry somehow, that it made sense.
We really got involved when we got partnered with the Ninth Church in Colombia. And then we started to build more relationships with the pastor and with the congregation.
It's cool how much we have in common as two congregations. We're both really into music. We're both really passionate about the youth in our communities, and particularly mental health of youth in our communities. We're growing together in these areas of interest.
We have a plan that our youth gets connected with the Colombian youth, so they learn more about their culture and their style of worship, and they will have good experience with them, learning Spanish together, or they learning English.
Que allá en Seattle hay jóvenes de las iglesias que dicen, es que tenemos una iglesia hermana en Colombia.
Sí.
Tenemos una iglesia hermana en Colombia, y son jóvenes de 14 años. Y que se relacionen con nuestros jóvenes de aquí de 14, 15 años, nos da la seguridad de que la iglesia va a formar parte importante de la vida de estos jóvenes en su presente y a futuro. Probablemente muchos de estos jóvenes van a ser pastores o van a ser doctores, médicos, ingenieros, pero van a saber que su fe, la identidad como presbiterianos, la tienen aquí y en cualquier parte del mundo, que pueden compartir con personas al otro lado del mundo que tienen su misma fe, y eso va a marcar sus vidas.
We're trying to do cooking classes where they teach us how to cook Colombian food, and then we'll vice versa, because we have so many different ethnicities and cultures in our congregation. You know, we're gonna do some Indian food and some Korean food and some Chinese food. We're always on WhatsApp and just texting and sending videos of what's happening in the church. I just got a recent video of like a hiking trip that they did, and, you know, saw that they sent some videos and about, you know, jumping into a waterfall at the lake and all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so fun. Okay, next time you have to take us there, right?
I would encourage other people to go and not be nervous about doing it, because it is so easy once you get there, and it's so comfortable that, you know, that's really a worthwhile experience.
When we make ourselves vulnerable, that we aren't proficient, that we don't know the language, that we don't know the culture, that we're not going to do things perfectly, we don't like to be in that place. But when we do, the mutual exchange and the gifts that come out of that are really powerful and transformative. Not taking ourselves so seriously and taking that risk, that's where I would tell churches to go for it.
This has to be based on mutuality of understanding that my well-being is invested in your well-being, and vice versa. And so that it really does feel like we get to do this together. It's not us going to go and get something out of this, but that we are both invited on a journey together.